This is a tutorial on how to sync data from your table in Coda to a worksheet in Google Sheets. Now, if you want to read more about how this works and all the different exceptions and caveats, please go to the blog post. It's a published Coda doc in the video notes. Otherwise, this video will be pretty step-by-step walkthrough on how you can get this set up today so you can start syncing data from your Coda doc to Google Sheets. So I have a doc here that has a list of team tasks. You can see a few columns. I have a feature, team, milestone, stage, code completion date, and also point of contact. And the point of contact is a select list which I can select names. So I want to sync this list of tasks into my Google Sheet here, which has the same exact column names. And the main thing is I want to be able to add new rows to this table, delete rows from this table, and also update rows in this table and have this data automatically get synced over to my Google Sheet. So how do I do that? We're going to use Google Apps Script. So I have once you go to script.google.com, create a brand new project, and let's rename this project to be Coda to Sheets Sync. All right. And I'm going to go over to the script, and this is stored in a repo, which I also link to in the video notes. And this is the Coda to Sheet.js script. I'm just going to copy this entire script and paste it into Google Apps Script. So I'm going to delete this and just paste what I just copied over from GitHub. All right, so these are the main settings right here from lines 9 through 14 that you have to set up. And once you set those things up, then the script should be ready to go and your sync will start working. Before we begin, I'm going to minimize this a little bit. Actually, keep it like this so the video stays there. The Coda has a library for Google Apps Script, and I put the string of text here. So you have to copy this string and put it into Google Apps Script, so that Google Apps Script knows what functions these are in the script, like Coda API. So I'm going to copy this list of this string of text and numbers. I'm going to copy this, and then go to Resources, Libraries, and then copy that string of text numbers here in library form, click Add, and you're going to see this pop up, and Coda API. I'm just going to select the latest version, so I'm using the latest version of the API, then hit Save. All right. So before you run this script, you have to put in a few things about your Coda doc and your Google Sheet worksheet in order for this to work. So the first thing we're going to do is get your API key. Your API key comes from your Coda account, and the way you can do this is go to your Coda settings, and if you scroll down below, you should see a Coda API tokens, API settings, and if you click on Generate API Token, give my new token, click Generate API Token, you'll have a token here. You can copy this token and put it into your Google Apps Script. I'm going to delete this for now. This is obviously sensitive information, so you want to make sure you don't share this API key with anyone, because otherwise people will be able to access your Coda docs and basically edit them without you knowing. So I'm going to pause the video for a second so I can copy and paste my own personal API key here so that I can hide it from the final video. So just 1 second. All right, I went ahead and copied over my API key, and I'm just going to keep it scrolled over here so you don't actually see it in the video. And the next 5 lines are things that you have to set up in order for your Google Apps Script to work and also for the sync to work. So source doc ID, what is that? If you go to your Coda doc, close this window, your doc ID is everything after the _d in the URL of your Coda doc. So in this case, it's everything from this underscore up until the slash. So this is my doc ID. So I'm going to copy this from my URL, then paste this into this variable here. Source table ID. So there are multiple ways of getting this. In my original Coda to Coda Google Apps script tutorial, I walked through how you can use a function called print doc tables. This can work, but it's kind of clunky. I think a faster way of doing this is actually turning on the developer tools for your account. So if you go to the very bottom of your settings page in Coda, you'll see labs and then click on enable developer mode. Once you enable that, you can click on these three dots for any table in Coda. And if you click on that and then click on copy table ID, this is the actual unique identifier for this table, which you can then use in the script. So I'm going to click on copy table ID. So since this is the table I want to sync into Google Sheets, go to Coda to Sheet Sync, and then select this variable and replace that. Copy and paste the table ID I just put in from Coda. The last three inputs are coming from Google Sheets, and this is a lot easier to do. So the first thing we needed to get is the Google Sheet unique ID. In your Google Sheet, this is everything after the /d, similar to Coda. So in my case, it's 1rm, all these letters and text right here. I'm going to copy this, go back to Google Apps script, and then replace this variable with that sheet ID. Target worksheet name. This is simply the actual name of the worksheet I want to sync into. So in this case, I want to sync into tasks 1. So I'm just going to replace this variable with tasks 1. And then finally, this is an interesting column that you have to add to your Google Sheet. So this is how Coda will know which rows in Google Sheet to update, delete, and add, so on and so forth, so that everything stays in sync. So I would recommend doing something like Coda Source, I can't spell, Source Row URL. And this is the same name that you have to put in your Google Sheet, typically at the very last column of your Google Sheet. So if I go here, I'm going to type this, copy and paste that column there. And you'll notice that this column does not exist when you look at the table in Coda, but on the back end, that column definitely is there. So don't worry if you don't see this. Whatever you type this in your Google Sheet, just know that this name and this new column has to match exactly what you put into this this variable. So that's it. Once you have that all set up, you can now click on this function here and click on runSync, and this will basically start syncing data over from Coda to Google Sheets based on the variables you set up here. Now, the first time you hit run, it's going to ask you to allow a few permissions. It's going to say Coda to Sheet Sync needs your permission to access your data in Google. Basically, it's saying, can Google Apps script edit your Google Sheets files? So review permissions. I'm just going to say allow. And it's going to run. And this might take a few seconds, but then once it's all run, you'll see there, all my data from my Coda doc is now in my Google Sheet like so. And it's also in the same order too. Send PVT is number 1. Factory visit for DVT is last. And you'll notice what happened in column G is these unique row URLs is something very unique to Coda, and each of these URLs goes to a specific row in Coda. So if I, let's say, look at copy and paste this row, which is find EVT factory, and I paste this into the URL, you notice that Coda automatically highlights that specific row in the table because these are all unique URLs. All right, so let's go ahead and start trying to play with this a little more. If I add a few more rows here, let's say this is new task red, new task blue. I'm just going to pick a bunch of random tasks to add and see if it automatically adds in the proper rows. I'm just going to put the same thing here for now and make these, actually let's mix this up a little bit. Copy these three, put down here. Let's see, these are all starting on May 29th. And these are all Polly's tasks. All right, so I have these three new tasks that are not synced yet to my Google Sheet, but all I have to do is go back to my Google Apps script, hit runSync, and the first time you do this, it may not actually sync over because what's happening in the background is when you add these new rows to Coda, Coda has to snapshot this data into the servers. So if you try to run the sync right after you add in these rows, it may not show up right away in your Google Sheet. Oh, in this case it did. And for some reason the stage, yeah, the reason why I think, let's try running this again. I think the reason why this stuff didn't carry over is because the snapshot didn't happen yet. So let's try this again. It's thinking. All right, let's go look at our Google Sheet now. And there you go. All the data is there. So that's the one caveat, is that don't treat this as a real-time sync. Data sometimes takes a little bit to hit the Coda servers, and then once it does, after like a few 5 seconds or 10 seconds at the most, the data can now be synced over to Google Sheets, and now you have all this data that's properly, all the Coda URLs which link back to the Coda doc. Now let's say I want to delete rows. Let's say I want to delete create layout for packaging. If I delete this from my table, it's still here in my Google Sheet, of course, but again, let's give it a few more seconds so that the Coda doc can recognize the deletion. And when I run the sync, this row should be deleted from my Google Sheet, since I deleted it from my Coda doc. So it should go straight from send PVT to design styrofoam. Right now, there's still this extra row. Okay, I think it's enough time to run. So let's run this again. And let's see if it just magically disappears from the Google Sheet. The great thing about these live demos is that you never know what's going to happen until you actually do it in real time. Did it finish running? Oh, it did. Should have deleted. Let's try running it one more time in case the snapshot didn't go all the way through. Maybe let's see if we're refreshing this. It should just work. Oh, it did work. I didn't even realize. I think I just was looking at the same two rows the whole time and didn't realize it worked. So yeah, so it went from send PVT to design styrofoam, send PVT to design styrofoam. I'm going to try this again just because I kind of went so fast I didn't even see it happen. I'm going to delete these two rows, review proto build and refine proto build, and we'll try that again. Guess I'm a little slow this morning. So let's try this one more time. So these two rows should be deleted. Let's try running the sync. As you can see, it's not an immediate kind of sync. It does take a few seconds, and that's why I wouldn't recommend this being like a real-time sync. It's not as real-time as we would like, but it still works in most cases. Oh, let's maybe refresh. We shouldn't have to refresh. Let's try running it again. Maybe the snapshot didn't actually cover over. Oh, there we go. Looks like it deleted one of them. and maybe let's try running it one more time. It deleted. Oh, now they're both gone. So as you can see, the deletion does take a little time to get used to, or for the sync to pick up. But again, I would set this maybe to run every hour so that it doesn't, so that it can basically recognize all the changes you're making to your Coda doc. And yeah, that's essentially the main advantages of being able to sync using the script, is being able to delete and update. And we actually haven't talked about updating data. So let's go ahead and update new task red to be awesome task. And maybe let's change find EV tag factory. Let's actually add in like maybe some emojis. And then let's say also for new task red awesome task, we change this from not started to building. So we changed 3 things in our Coda doc. We changed this task to have awesome task. We added these 3 emojis to find EVT factory. And we also changed this to building. So let's run this sync after a few seconds goes by and see if these things will get updated. All right, let's go ahead and run the sync. Oh, there we go. You can see new task red awesome task. It's building, and also we have these 3 fun emojis and find EVT factory. And yeah, that's really how the sync works. You can add, delete, update rows of data. And a few other caveats I wanted to point out about this script. So you can actually rearrange columns in Google Sheets. You can put this column, team column, over here. And you can also insert blank columns inside the Google Sheet. And the sync will still run properly without you having to adjust anything in the script. And let's go ahead and run this. I think it should work since I didn't really make any updates to the Coda doc. So that's one of the flexibilities, is that you can insert blank new columns in the middle of your Google Sheet. This could be a new formula. And you can write formulas here and know that columns A through C and columns E through G are all synced correctly. And also this is a special column. You want to make sure that this is typically at the end of your table. And let's just see if this synced. I want to see if this new task I added will get synced over to my Google Sheet. It's still running. Running. And additionally, you can also, yep, there's the new task. You can also add new columns to this Coda table. I can add new columns right here and wherever I want. And these columns, my new column, this new column will not get synced over to Google Sheets unless you have the same column name in Coda in Google Sheets. So this is also useful because in your source Coda doc, you can also have columns that are also formulas that can allow you to build formulas off of data in your rows, obviously. So the last thing I want to mention is how to get this script to run, because as you saw, I'm manually going here, clicking this run button, and it's not feasible to do this every hour or every minute or however often you want this script to run. And so if you click on this icon right here, this is your project's current triggers. I'm going to zoom this out a little bit. This is where you can define how often you want your Google Apps script to run. So if I click on Add Trigger, now since this is a script that's using a third-party service, in this case Coda, you can't you have to use a trigger called a installable trigger, which runs on a time event. Other triggers in Google Sheets and Google Docs and Calendar, you can use those based on changes in Google Sheets and Google Docs. But in this case, you have to use a time-driven trigger. And so a few settings you want to make sure you have right here is runSync is your main function to run. Head is the default option, time-driven. And here's where you can pick how often you want it to run. Every month, every week, every day, every hour. I think a good cadence is every hour because, again, this is not meant to be a real-time sync. So if you are working with data that can be synced every hour or so, I would probably pick hour timer. And then you can have it also run every hour, 2 hours, 4 hours. If you select minutes, you can have it run every 5, 10, 15, 30 minutes. So again, I would recommend probably greater than 10 minutes, but again, this is all up to you and how often you want it to run. And this is also nice because you can get a notification if the Google Apps script fails to run, which is really useful. Now, I'm just going to add this trigger, and let's just pick for minutes timer, every minute for now, and notify me immediately. Save. Okay, and if I click on the executions for this trigger, you'll start seeing all the times your script runs, in this case every minute. It'll also show you anything that went wrong and how long the script is running for. And I also put in some logging details in the script so that you can see how many rows are being added, how many rows are being deleted, how many rows are being updated. And so let's just see if I can quickly add a few tasks before it runs. New blue task, new green task. Adding so many tasks. So in theory, the script will show that these 3 new tasks have been added, and it'll also get logged. Oh, here we go. So this is an example of the trigger. It triggered the script to run on the minute, every minute, and you can see how long it's been running for. And here is some logging data. It looks like the values I entered in didn't pick up in Coda yet. But these login details, if you really care, can show you what's being added and deleted and updated in Coda so that you know what's going into your Google Sheets every single time the script runs. And that is a tutorial on how to use the, oh, it did actually add. Interesting. This might have, maybe this was, oh, maybe this one. You can tell it's like this, oh, there we go. Here's when it picked up the 3 new tasks. No values were changed. So again, having it run every single minute might be overkill. So this is just an example to show how the logging can show you what's happening behind the scenes for your Google Sheet. And that is how you can sync data from your Coda doc to Google Sheets.